Okay, everybody, it's your OG, Jeff Eichen here, all the way in Colorado. You got to travel the world, I guess, to get out there and to meet some beautiful people that make a difference, that mean a difference, and that have that golden thread. This is a hemp fiber from the 3D company. It's like pasta. They broke off a piece for me. But it's the golden thread that connects us in life, that connects the trees and the forest together, the mycelium network. And for those of you that can handle the spiritual Jeff, I cried today when I got these hemp sunglasses because there's no petroleum in here. And so it's time that we figured this out. You know, if we're making hemp plastic and we're making hemp dog treats, then what the F is their excuse for glyphosate and for dirty cotton? My vest is hemp, my shirt is hemp, my hat is hemp, my socks are hemp, and my heart is, oh, wait, here's some hemp hearts. So, you know, as a raw vegan, nobody can tell me I can't get my protein from hemp, so it's a perfect plant. Tommy Chong says it might be one of the most beautiful plants on the planet and full of everything. And I think today we're going to introduce you to Gloria Castillo, and we've been friends for a lifetime or two or three, and we're just coming together right now. We're so blessed to have you on our show. Thank you. Namaste and Ramaste and Hem Hem Hooray. Gloria, tell us a little bit about what got you started in the industry. Introduce yourself and tell us your background.
Well, I was born and raised in Texas. I presently make my home in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have been active. Well, I've been a lifelong activist and for human and civil rights since I was 17 years old as a freshman at the University of Texas in Austin, Texas. You could kind of say that I was radicalized there by my interactions with it was the coming of these movements that were coming to the forefront all at the same time.
You mean in the 70s? Black Panthers?
The Black Panthers, the Brown Berets.
Chicano Power.
American Indian movement, the feminist movement.
Oh, yeah, Helen Reddy.
Well, I'd say more Angela Davis.
And Angela Davis.
Who I actually got to meet and who gave me a hug.
Wait. She was on Amy Goodman a few weeks ago. I saw her with her big afro still.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean,
Heroes. They're heroes.
Yes, they are, and those were amazing times. And I was more involved in support in Native American support of Native American issues, sovereignty, and I do come from an indigenous background, but my father was an orphan, and and like many Chicano people.
Castillo.
Well, yes, I'm going to take a page from my African American friends and say that's my slave name.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. No holds bars on Weedsday on Friday. So this is Good Friday. So it's glad to have you. Yes, thank you. Respect.
So I just want to say that I wasn't brought up, in a traditional, with very little knowledge of my Native American heritage. And so I had to seek it out for myself. I had to go out and find it. So I did that by listening to the elders. I mean, I'm essentially a teenager in this time, 17, 18, 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And like many Mexican American families, we weren't practicing our Native American heritage or traditions. And but I was certainly very interested. I was certainly, you know, very interested.
You were thirsty to find out.
Oh, absolutely. And going to Texas public schools, I figured out very early on. It's like, they're ignoring us. Everything they're teaching us is.
You mean whitewash? They erased.
Yes, and we're
Erasure.
erased. No, they weren't telling any of the true stories that I heard from some of my relatives. And so I was interested in true history, and I sought that out on my own. And kind of fast forward, I'm a little bit older, and I have at this time spent probably 10 to 15 years being active in support of Native American issues, and out of that, to kind of like cut to the chase, right? Out of that, I was recruited by some of the local activists, which at that time it was called the Texas Hemp Campaign, THC. Oh, we were so clever, and and they knew that they needed more women in the movement, and they wanted indigenous and people of color. To their credit, they were seeking to diversify and have.
Was there an agenda there?
There was, but their agenda wasn't my agenda.
Right.
Because.
Was it? We heard in the early days, we have our token, blah blah blah. Was it for that, or was it they wanted to just finally bring everybody together?
I think that they were honestly driven by their with their higher expression, even though they were white guys.
Right.
Which is okay.
Hey, I'm a white guy. Come on.
No offense intended, but and kind of through that venue, I got it because I was a volunteer with Texas Hemp Campaign. We were invited to Farm Aid, Willie Nelson's Farm Aid, and gosh, I can't even remember what year that was, but I met Jack Herrera there because we.
Wait. Hair like terror.
Hair.
Because Dan would smack my hand and he would say, Jeffrey, it's hair like terror.
Hair like terror. Okay. Well,
and he was going to scare the bejeebas out of the government to end prohibition.
That's right.
Hair like terror.
But I met him at Farm Aid, and he recruited me into the movement and gave me a free book and talked to me about. He just gave me his whole spiel,
He does have a spiel, or he did.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've even got Sir Tommy here, So
bless his heart,
Yeah. And rest in peace, Jack.
That's right. He was a great American, that's for sure. So I got more and more interested in hemp and the cannabis issues, and you have to remember that at that time, the cannabis movement had been ongoing since what, the 50s or the 60s?
Right.
So it had a long route, and they had many soldiers. They had many foot soldiers and supporters. Right. Hemp had no one.
Even though it was from the same strain.
Hemp had no one. Very few people. I mean, I won't say that it was absolute zero, but it was very few and far between. I will say that. And I was more interested in the industrial applications, more so than the cannabis side. So I've always worked more diligently and more actively.
You mean paper, fiber, fuel, medicine, and food?
Absolutely.
And hempcrete and plastic now.
That's correct. And we've gone so far. We've come so far since those early years where there were for one thing, we had to develop a strategy for educating the public, the politicians, because everyone just assumed, there were a few people of the caliber like Jack Herrer who knew the difference, right?
You got it.
And had a scientific,
Right.
and had a scientific
Well, that you got to prove
mindset.
things by science.
That's right.
Or you don't get the FDA or the AAA, to tow your car.
Right, and so, and so that's where we started with educating everyone about the difference between marijuana and hemp. And actually, by talking to the activists and the advocates in that era, we're talking about the early 90s, early to mid 90s, there had actually, because as I say, there was that the legalized marijuana movement had existed already for decades. And they actually and
Since Woodstock.
that's right. And some of those leaders of that movement actually told me that they had actually had meetings about this and come to consensus that they would advocate only for marijuana, and that hemp was kind of on its own. They had made that decision in the strategy.
And when did it start coming together? When did we get remarried?
I would say the 90s.
Okay.
I would say that there was, that's when I met Chris Boucher.
Do you know Chris Conrad?
That's I sure do.
Yep.
I knew
Chris and Mickey.
Chris and Mickey.
Chris and Mickey, hello.
That's right.
We're at NOCO. We miss you.
And not only that.
And look, I'm with Gloria.
And not only that, Chris and Mickey, don't you remember that you sold me editions of your imperfect books because they I guess because they didn't want imperfect books in the bookstore, and so I bought them all, and you gave me a great discounted price, and I used those until I gave them all away to educate politicians.
Chris and Mickey their books are epic.
Yes.
They inspired me to get the prisoners home.
That's right.
Because they had Amy Pova on the cover from Can Do Clemency in Malibu, California, who was in jail for 9 years.
Yes, and Mickey had a background in, I'm trying to remember what organization. I had it in my head just a minute ago, but she was working on global civil rights.
Right.
And
I think Mickey, and I'm going to say this, I think Mickey can convince, sell ice to an Eskimo.
That sounds kind of like.
No, but I mean, just saying that she really has a way, a delivery, and so I'm really blessed to have them as my teachers.
Right. So yes, I did know Chris Conrad. And Algo Doss, and all of us, from the old guard, and so then I kind of developed my own philosophy for how I was going to go forward, because it was a very unpopular stance. Talking to people about decriminalizing industrial hemp. First, you had to get past the barriers of people thinking that you were talking about marijuana and that they were one and the same, and sustainability was starting to become a buzzword in that time, and so you had the naysayers talking about how, well, there's really no such thing as sustainability. It's just a nice buzzword, but it can never actually be accomplished. Well, guess what? When you include industrial hemp in that equation, then it works. It doesn't work without industrial hemp
Right.
in that equation.
To separate them and teach. What I say sometimes on my show is that we're teaching, not preaching, you know.
So we're talking about the early 90s.
Right.
And because I had somewhat of a very minor reputation in in working with Native American support issues, I decided that if I was going to take this on and devote my life, I hadn't intended to devote my life and all my energy to it, but every time somebody criticized me and told me what a dumb idea it was, that made me so angry.
It makes me angry when people say you're barking up the wrong tree.
That's right.
Makes you want to do it more.
Yes, as I said to somebody who I really cared about, I'm going to prove you wrong, I said. And so in 1991, I took it upon myself, or I was invited actually, to go to a meeting in Mexico City, which takes place every 4 years. It's referred to as El Encuentro del Condor y la Águila. And that translates into the meeting of the condor and the eagle. And it brings together tribes and indigenous communities from throughout the Western Hemisphere. And
You mean North
Native-
and South also?
yes, and so Native people come from Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central and South America.
Wow.
And that year, which was 1991, they had actually decided to hold it that year. It was supposed to be scheduled for 1992, but they decided that they would have it in 1991 because they wanted to prepare for the Columbus Quincentenary.
Holy moly.
They wanted to prepare their message and their protest to the doctrine of discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided that I would go down there and that I was invited, and that I would make a declaration and a request to the elders. I would make a declaration and ask for permission to pursue a campaign to legalize hemp in the United States, and to teach as many people as would be willing to listen about why sacred plants and sacred medicines are necessary in the psychosocial fabric of humanity. So I went there. I was given time on the agenda to make my speech. I wrote it the night before, and although, you know, I do speak Spanish rather fluently, I'm not perfect because, you know, I speak this slang
Poquito más, poquito más.
slang type of Spanish, and I wanted to sound like that I knew what I was talking about, you know, delivering a speech in Spanish.
It's honorable when you do your best.
Yeah, so I spent 2 days writing my speech and translating it and making sure I had translated it correctly, so that when I was looking at my notes, I was saying the right thing, saying it the right way, and so I made this declaration for why Native communities should support the legalization of hemp and marijuana. And I emphasized, you know, this is the 90s, right? The years of the Iran-Contra and the illegal wars that the CIA was waging on indigenous communities in the name of the war on drugs, right? In the name of the war on drugs, they were trafficking arms to to these quasi paramilitary groups so that they could fight the drug war down there. But all they were doing was putting the indigenous communities in the crossfire
Right.
between the paramilitaries and the narco traffickers.
Right. That was the 90s?
1991.
Wow, early 90s, everybody. We're here at NOCO 9, everybody. We're with Gloria Castillo, an OG, not unlike the rest of the OGs that are out there. And we're wanting to pass our baton. The legacy is so important for us to share. That's why I do this show, so we can have information through film. I say film is food, so let's feed you with some information and from the real folks that have been through this and in the war of drugs in the 90s. So Gloria is giving us some inside scoop, and that's my job, is to bring spirit in and to raise it as high as we can, keep it there, and then drink, stay hydrated, everybody, and share it with the world. Let's end prohibition together. Okay, hemp, hemp, hooray. So carry on, Gloria.
Well, thank you so much. And so, as a result of that declaration that I made, and and I was also asking the elders for permission to educate people about sacred plants and sacred medicines, and I received overwhelming support in that venue for my request for permission, with a few naysayers who, not surprisingly, came from the United States. But the Maya were the host community that year.
That's Guatemala?
On the border of Guatemala and the southern tip of Mexico.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah, that area below Cancun, which all of
Sure.
us, yeah. They were the host for that encuentro that year. So some of the people who were resistant to the message requested that I be kicked out of the conference because I was promoting marijuana use in indigenous communities. So the Maya exercised their privilege as a host and said, no, we're not going to kick her out because she's right. And we need a campaign like this because they were the ones being caught. The CIA was killing these people. These are poor people who could barely afford to send their kids to school, who had to work and save and scrimp for months to put shoes on the feet of their children. I mean, they were poor. They were poor. And our government is arming the trafficker, arming the paramilitaries, and they're killing them in the name of the war on drugs, in our name.
Right.
And that made me angry.
That was blasphemy.
It was, and it was, that was so morally wrong. And because being from the United States, we had the privilege of sitting around in coffee shops and debating the merits, or isn't that, debating the merits of
We weren't in the crossfire.
legalization.
We weren't in the crossfire.
That's right.
Right. We were not there where people were dying, and we were insulated here with the Grammy Awards making music and fast cars.
That's right. And yeah, you're absolutely right.
My father had Jaguars and Aston Martins as I was growing up, and he moved to Mexico for 30 years. He lived in the barrios. He lived in Rosarita. He lived in Oaxaca. He lived in Antigua, Guatemala. I took his ashes to the volcano in Guatemala, and I blew his ashes in for his favorite volcano.
Well, it's not only a beautiful and a stunning geographically a place with the oceans and the tropical rainforest and the myriad of wildlife and bird life and the tropical rainforest, the flora and the fauna, let's say.
Yeah.
Not only is it a stunningly beautiful place, the people there, their hearts, they're so beautiful. And it really struck me when I was there because my father was a mason and he worked in construction. And as a result of that, I was very familiar with so many of the immigrant young men that come to the United States to try to make their living. And the disrespect and the discrimination that we showed them and the hospitality that they showed us
Right.
couldn't compare.
No.
They're,
It wasn't from the, like there's more heart in the indigenous and in the ground people that are walking on the ground, not in halfway up the air, you know.
Absolutely. So so all of that was a life-changing experience and gave me the courage to face and do what I felt like that I had to do, because whenever anyone criticized me and told me I was wasting my time and whatever, I thought about those people who actually, their families who actually lost their loved ones, in the war on drugs. The war on drugs over here was, the cops roll up into your community and they and they go into somebody's houses and they drag you out and put handcuffs on you. You go to jail and you go through the monkey trial and all of this. But they were just literally shooting them to death for no reason. And whenever those people gave me the courage to face what I had to do.
Do you have an idea of how that all started? Or was that back in the Roman Empire when people were shooting people for no reason? I mean, it just as a child, I never understood violence or negativity or the word no, And Timothy Leary had a movie with Ram Dass, and it said, just say no, and it was spelled K-N-O-W. Just say no. So as a child, I'm just curious as if what started that thread of humans that are on a warpath.
Well, I would say that it has to do with here in the United States in our time, okay, we would refer to it as colonialism. But and that's even wrong when you say first contact.
Right.
Because Columbus was not the first contact. The Chinese had been here. They had active trading routes. The Vikings had been up in Greenland, as they called it. And obviously the Polynesians had been traveling the ocean and coming across. And up until the coming of Columbus, it had been a relatively, I'm not, maybe peaceful isn't the correct word, because I wasn't there. I don't know that it was absolutely peaceful, but at least it was based on trade, and people came here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if they were shipwrecked, they couldn't go back home. But most of the time they came here to trade and they went back.
Right.
And there was an exchange.
So is it up to us right now to rewrite the history books or just to get end prohibition? Or both?
I think I'm a true believer in terms of organizing and community outreach, because it's apparent to me, and you cannot achieve the goals if you're I consider myself, I mean, I think when I started out, I was a volunteer. And then I became an activist. And then I thought of myself as an advocate. But now I think of myself as a strategist. And if you have a strategy for the change that you want to achieve or the goals that you intend, and then there's a whole process to how you.
It's the lane that you go, that you drive down, and stay in your lane. This is my lane for the prisoners.
Well, okay, yeah. So you have to have a focus,
See, that's-
right? You
because
have
I
to
was-
have a
yeah.
focus, but at the same time, I think that when it comes to working within the system, okay, whatever, and that changes
Right,
all the time.
right.
When it comes to working within the system, you have to work locally at your local level.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work with your counties and your municipalities.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be working at the state level and at the federal level. And until you're hitting all those pistons, the change will not happen. You have to, or as one of my friends likes to say, you have to outsmart the problem. And that leaves a lot of room for the definition
Right.
of what's the problem. And, and when I say smart, I'm thinking about human capital. I'm not talking about AI. I'm not talking about artificial intelligence.
Well, don't panic. It's organic, So I believe what you say is gospel and truth. So how do you feel we're making progress?
Well, I will say, and I'm going on the record here, right?
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to say that my business partner and I, Jerry Fuentes, may you rest in peace. You were an extraordinary human being. In 2017, we decided on a strategy for, we had hemp in the 2014 Farm Bill, but it was limited to research and development with universities. There was no free market in it.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't grow you had to apply for these research permits with your State Department of Agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2018, the Farm Bill came up for a vote, was going to come up for a vote. So we developed a strategy, and I reached out to the different agriculture organizations that I had been in contact. I mean, because this was like this constant educational campaign of talking to people about why we should be supporting industrial hemp for farmers,
Mm-hmm.
okay, in the agriculture arena. And I'll have to say that the farm organizations that deserve the most credit, because they were open to the discussion and willing to go forward, was the National Farmers Union, the National Latino Farmers and Ranchers Trade Association, and the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, which was made up mostly of African American farmers in the South. So by being inclusionary and actually focusing on a strategy to benefit the family-owned farm, because all this time we're also fighting and fending off the agri corporations, right?
Totally.
Who are looking. I know what their mindset is. Their mindset is let these little old activists go out there and do all the hard work, and then we'll come in, we'll pay off everyone in Congress like we always usually do, and then we'll retain. We will.
Right.
Then we'll own the right to do all this because we'll make it so expensive for farmers to purchase permits. We'll require all this testing that they can't afford until we've cost them so much money and energy that there's no profit in them for them, and then they'll just roll over and die. And that's their strategy, Just like we're killing off all the people anyway with our poisonous practices. It's like, what's wrong with? It's a strategy that's worked for them.
And then we take a 3-year break with COVID.
Oh, right.
Wait a minute.
Right when the pharmaceuticals are losing market share, right?
Hello.
They're starting.
Hello, Pfizer.
They're starting.
We're calling out for you.
Yeah, they're starting to show a decrease in profitability. So you know what that means is that we have to let loose upon the world a contagion. And then we have to require everyone to take these vaccinations. And we, the government, will pay them for all these vaccinations and keep them afloat, because that's
the American way.
That's corporate welfare. And so we worked on the Farm Bill. They all agreed that we would work on this strategy for expanding the hemp language in the 2018 Farm Bill. And so I'll wrap this up because I know I'm going over.
No, it's fine.
I'll just cut to the chase about what actually happened.
We're cutting to the chase, everybody. We're here at NOCO 9, and we're with Gloria Castillo, and that's Jeff Eichen, and it's my pleasure to bring the words of wisdom and honesty and our truth. You figure out, you get the sieve out, and you go through it and make your own juice, what you want to drink. But we're saying what we're going to say, and we're staying in our lane. So you know what I do, and now you meet Gloria. It's a pleasure, Gloria, to have you share with my audience.
Well, thank you very much. So I'll conclude. This is an important part because it does bring, I think, a very hopeful conclusion to where we were at that time in 2018, trying to pass the 2018 Farm Bill. So I contacted Chris Boucher of California and asked him what he thought. Kind of like this little focus group thing. What do you think about this? What should we do? What should we say? We came up with the expanded language, which still focused on research and development because we still weren't going to get full legalization. But it's like one of the elders from Taos Pueblo once said to me. His name was Tony Reyna. He said, "Stay behind the medicine. Don't get in front of it, but be prepared." So be prepared. That's the lesson. And what happened was, we got our New Mexico congressional delegation to sponsor the expansion of the language in the Farm Bill, because now Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham was in the House, and she was on the Ag Committee. The House Ag Committee. So she sponsored that language. She'd make a great president, by the way. Anyway, she sponsored.
We do need the grandmothers and the women in charge.
Leadership.
In charge. They are going up. When I was at 2012 in Chichen Itza, the elders there told me, I said, "What should I know?" He says, "It's the time of the grandmothers. It's the time of the woman."
So she sponsored the expanded language in the Farm Bill. And I had through the African American farmers in Oklahoma, because Frank Lucas was the majority chairman of the House Ag Committee at that time, and he's from Oklahoma, and I got them to convince him that he would support expanded hemp language in the Farm Bill. So we knew we would have the votes to
Is
pass
this
it.
a new Farm Bill or
The 2018.
ratification?
It's
No. After the 2018, were you allowed to change it or add to it state by state?
no. What happened?
Yeah.
What happened was that the hemp language was adopted into the bill, but the vote on the bill itself failed. In other words, it didn't pass. And the main reason it didn't pass, is just a side note, was because Speaker Ryan, in order to maintain SNAP and WIC benefits for the poor, he wanted to put in a requirement that they would have to work 30 hours a week for those benefits. This is in an economy where even people who were totally, able, not disabled, they couldn't even find jobs and work.
Right.
And he's expecting the poor who are disabled
To take
and have
30
children
hours.
to find 30-hour a
Whoa.
week jobs for these men. And that's why they didn't pass it. But nonetheless, the protocol is that the House vote failed, but it still had to go on forward to the Senate for the Senate vote.
Mm-hmm.
And they passed the Farm Bill. I mean, they passed that bill unanimously. Although, I think if you look at the record, they did record one no vote, but that's not really correct because the no they recorded was someone who was absent, and they just marked it as a no, even though it was an absent vote. But anyway, so it passed. It passed unanimously, and in between that time, between the failed House vote and the Senate Ag vote, President Trump got on television because he was embarrassed and angry that his legislation wasn't getting through. And I remember seeing him on television, and I'll refrain from confessing what my true feelings are about President Donald Trump, but he got on the television and he said, "We will pass a farm bill this year." So then the Senate version of the Farm Bill went back to the House for
Right.
a revote, and they had the president breathing down their necks. They passed it the way it was. So then the hemp language passed in the Farm Bill, and then Senator Mitch McConnell, we're always so indebted to you for your pattern of Republican partisanship, because what he did is he didn't want the Democrats to get any credit for passing hemp in the Farm Bill. So he put a Senate amendment in there to take it off of Controlled Substances Act, even though he'd had that Senate amendment for like over 10 years and
Right.
had never introduced it for a vote, even though they could have passed it many times.
Right.
He only did it to keep the attention off of the Democrats. But either way, my conclusion to that is that we were ready, and it just turned out that way because it had to, because we had to have change, and that's what happened.
And from here on, where do we go?
Well, we're here today, and I just want to say that it's heartening to me and gratifying to be here at NOCO this year, because there's so many young people participating here today, and they're so enthusiastic and so committed, and a lot of them want to work on hemp-based housing. And that's what I'm working on now, and to source green products so that we can make
A difference.
And also make green housing more affordable.
More affordable, the more we make, the price will go down.
That's right. And also there's a bottleneck in the manufacturing. You know, it's like right now, like in New Mexico, which has a long tradition of adobe building. People know how to make adobes and make bricks. But if you want a hemp adobe brick, there's no place to buy it. You'd have to go out there and make the bricks yourself, and then build your house. And that's
I know some people in Taos that are doing it.
That's right, but that's why we need to address, and that's why we need to support and our industrial hemp growers and farmers, and demand. And demand that our counties, our states, our cities support the value-added chain that the economic development that will encourage, that will bring all this to market. I mean, how long have we been subsidizing oil and gas? How long have we been subsidizing all these other pharmaceuticals and these money-losing propositions that if our government and our tax dollars...
$1 million here, $1 million there. I saw the Oakland Raiders move to Las Vegas, and I heard their new stadium cost $30 billion or $20 billion, and $1 billion is 1,000 million. Or 100
and just
million.
Think how much cement that they use that's going to continue to put carbon dioxide into the air.
Totally.
When they could have had a totally green building.
Totally green buildings for life, everybody. Any final words to the audience? And thank you so much for joining us. I'm really pleased and blessed to have you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm trying to think of something profound.
Well, give a shout out to the prisoners first, all the prisoners in jail for pot.
God bless you. God bless you all, and we're gonna bring you home soon. You're not forgotten, and God bless all the hardworking people out there who toil in the fields and work those blue-collar jobs, and don't get the respect that they deserve. Thank you to all the grandmothers and the indigenous elders who so generously share their wisdom with us to help us to find a better way. But most of all, I always remember the words of Sitting Bull, who said, "Let us put our minds together and see what we can do for the goodness of the future and our children." Sitting Bull said that. Thank you so much.
Well, everybody, we heard the bell there ring, and on that note, it's a blessing to be at a hemp expo. We've had COVID for quite a while, and so we haven't been out to many expos in the near recent future. But they just had Spannabis in Spain. They had the Hemp Alliance in Thailand. And I can't do every show because I'm focused on my prison project and helping to end prohibition. So look out for us every Wednesday, everybody. Third Wednesday is Women in Weed. And this is Jeff Eichen with Weedsdays on a Friday. We're all the way in Colorado. And it's great to finally to share some space with you and to get to know you.
And I just want to say one more thing, because I want to say thank you and express my appreciation to so many people in more than 20 years of activism who did even one little small thing, made a phone call to their, to a politician, wrote a letter to the editor in the opinion account, spoke to their families and neighbors, at an outdoor barbecue. So many people helped to get us to a point to where we had a unified front, because it was the farmers, the environmentalists, Native communities, people that wanted access to CBD, hemp CBD, and medical marijuana for healing purposes. People that were interested in greener construction products. People that were interested in doing the research for grain and feed for livestock and pets. So many people helped. I can't remember them all. There were so many, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I want to know that. Thank you.
Everybody, we're not warring or warriors, but we've been at it a long time. So from one OG to the other, it's really important to share our legacy so you can make your legacy. So Jeff Eichen here, it's really a pleasure, and I did have tears when I got my first hemp sunglasses. There's no petroleum in these, everybody, and so it's just an honor to be alive while we're killing the dragon. We're slaying the dragon, which is the man that wants toxicity in everything, and we're raping the planet still. So not to talk about global warming or this or that, but hemp is the perfect plant. We choose to be on this road, and we're here at the Hemp NOCO Expo 9, and hemp hooray! What can I say? So it's Jeff Eichen here with Gloria Castillo. Mucho gusto. Mucho gusto. Wait here, give me 3 for weed, and do you have a 3 there? Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, I just took that. So we got our thank you 3 from Gloria, and I'm going to sign a poster for you, honor you and your walk, and you're welcome to come on anytime to my show from Zoom chat, and we would love to have you. It's great to be in alliance with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time you gave me. Thank you so much.
Okay, everybody, it's time to go walk the show and maybe sneak in a drone. Okay, bye-bye.
And remember that you.
We heard you, everybody. Here we go. Eat your hemp every day. Hemp seeds have lots of mucho protein.